what I want to show you is just the power of the story and what you can do with your story and the story of your organizations. And so when it comes to a story, there are three things that you want to do. Number one, the D, distract. 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 And so here's what happened. We're in a room with leaders, people that have a lot of things to do. But how many of you honestly can say that while the time I was sharing the story about my mom, that I had you momentarily distracted? You may have had all kinds of things going on in your mind. I've got emails to respond to. I've got meetings to attend. I've got things to do. I've got to slide out of here pretty soon. Hey, this guy doesn't have much more time. But once I got into that story, all of a sudden you were leaning in front of your seat. Once I got into the story, I could feel everyone leaning in. Once I got into the story, nothing else mattered. And so here's what happens. That's the power of a story. And so what we want to do is, you're meeting with people who don't have much time. You're meeting with people who have other people who are fighting for their resources. You're meeting with people who have other things that they need to do. Other people who are drawing on their time. So what are you going to do in that 5 minutes? What are you going to do in the 15 minutes? You better distract them. And the fastest way for you to do that is to tell a compelling story. How many of you understand and just experience what I just explained? Yes or yes? Yes. All right? And so we want to absolutely distract them. That is the power of a story. The next thing is we need to dispute. We need to dispute. Now, from a motivational standpoint, I share that story because I know there are people in my audience who are saying that I don't have the resources. I don't have the funds. I don't have the right degree. I'm not of the right complexion. I didn't come from the right lineage. I don't have the right initials behind my name. But you just don't understand my story. And so in my mom's story, I'm disputing those excuses. Why? I'm talking about a woman who came from the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. A woman who slept outside. A woman who came to this country and couldn't speak English. Who had less than $150 to her name. A woman who started off working in Miami, Florida, making up beds. Who worked in a purse factory 8 hours a day, flipping purses like a machine, preparing them for stitching. Why am I sharing that? I'm disputing the excuses that they have. And so how many of you know that when you have an opportunity to stand in front of a potential donor, talk to somebody who's on staff, or you're trying to push out an initiative, there's going to be some things going on in which they're going to dispute what you have. We don't have enough resources. Oh, we already have enough initiatives. Well, the last one we tried, it didn't necessarily work. Well, I already have tons of people pulling away from my time and making some things happen. How many of you know, and we do it ourselves, that a lot of times when you're getting in front of somebody that you already know that there's going to be some things that they want to dispute whatever it is that you're actually offering them. Yes or yes? Yes. Right? And so we need to think about that in advance and share a story that is going to help us dispute that. And so I'm gonna just make some fake ones up, okay? So you can think about this. And so, hey, you know what? There's an individual that came in the other day. You know what? This gentleman, he happens to serve on several boards. He's actually one of the top level guys in a particular company. He also coaches his son's soccer team. And on top of that, of course, he's a devout father. He spends time, he volunteers, he does all kinds of things. And would you really believe that he's never, ever missed one of our actual volunteer things? And so one of the things that we've learned from that is that if you make time for the things that are important to you, did you see how I just did that? All I'm doing is I'm taking a story and I'm just simply sharing the story because you already know that this is something that's already in the person's mind. And so yes, you know what? We had 9/11 happen. Sure, clearly there's been some changes and some shifts in the economy. And so one of the things that we know across the board, people are being asked to do more with less. Funds and resources are going down. But would you believe that when it comes to this particular initiative that we have, that we've actually noticed a 2 to 3% increase in this particular area? And so what we found is that what this is important enough that in spite of what's going on in the economy, that there are some people who still understand that it's important to help the homeless, that it's important to help the children, that it's important to provide legal service, that it's important to be able to help people with funding, to support families. Did you see how I just did that? And so what we're doing is we're just simply taking stories. And these are stories that right now I'm making up for an example because I don't want to just tell you to do something and not show you. But what I'm saying is you have the capacity to do this. And all you have to do is find those stories and embed within the story, have the ability to actually dispute what you know it is that they're already thinking in their mind. And finally, the last part is inspire. Inspire. And so what happened is I stopped in the middle of that story. And I held back, believe it or not, when I told my mom's story, I held back because I'm in a training setting. But if I really unleashed, did anybody begin to feel just a little bit of emotion that was surfacing in the room? How many of you were experiencing some emotion? Yes or yes? Okay? And that is held back. That is being held back because this is what I do full time. So I'm able to hold that back. But what happened is the story has an emotional capacity. And so what happened is if we're 1 year later and we ask you, what did you learn over the course of my presentation? You probably won't be able to say distracted student is fine. You probably won't say, who are you, what do you have, and why should I care? You probably won't be able to say unconscious incompetence, conscious uncompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. You probably won't be able to spit that up. But if somebody says, hey, do you remember that guy when he shared that story about the lady, she came from Haiti, she had the building in Delray, and then she went to the sale, and she was just going to ask them if they could stay, and then she just decided to start bidding on the property, and she won the bid, and she still has the property. How many of you would still remember that a year from now? Yes or yes? Yes. That's the power of a story.